the engine block strip begins. Since we last talked, what have I done? Remove the water pump, oil pump. I did sort of centre punch the top there and centre punch the oil pump just to make sure I put it in the right way. I suppose it's self-explanatory, but I don't know if you can put it different ways around, but I sort of centre punched it there and there to make sure it was the right way. Took the cam bolt tension off. Yeah, the water pump has got a plastic impeller, so I'm assuming that means it's had a water pump before. I believe it probably has, because the cam bolt didn't look, horrendous. So yeah, got the sump off. Takes quite a while because some of these top bolts here, when it's on, you can't get to with a ratchet. The oil pickup itself looks pretty clean. To be fair, in the sump, I've seen a lot worse than that. It doesn't look not that sludgy, considering it's been full of everything. Inside here looks quite clean. I did also, when I took the flywheel off, well, I suppose it is the flywheel into a drive plate, I did centre punch that as well. So little centre punch on that and centre punch on the crank, just for the fact, because when you look at the back of it, it's drilled out, so it is balanced. So you would imagine it's balanced to the crank. Might be a waste of time, because somebody may have had it off and put it on the wrong way, but they might not have done. So better to put it back on where it was. And there's a good chance you sorted it. There's this little affair here which has got a little float on. See that? You see the wire there? It's actually broken. Now that's where it goes to. There was like a cap on there with one wire coming out the loom onto there. I'm assuming that is like a level sensor. So if that wire's not connected, it depends how it works, but I would think maybe when it connects it and put us a warning light on, possibly. So if it's not connected, you wouldn't know you were low on oil. It could work the opposite way around. It could tell you need oil when you don't need oil, which might explain why it's got loads of oil in. Somebody may come back to me, and somebody who knows a bit more than me might come back and tell me. But looking at all these bolts, I think these are your big main to take the cradle off to get the crank bearings out. You've got quite a lot of little ones around the edge. I'm assuming this intermediate bit is just put on with sealer, because I can't see any gasket protruding now, and you'd think it would have to be, because there's no real bearing caps for the main bearings, so there can't be any thickness of gasket there, otherwise it wouldn't work. So I'm assuming it's like a mated, like the two case halves on a air-cooled Volkswagen engine, where it's just a clean surface and bolted together, and that actually clamps the crank, just has a bit of sealer in there. I'm assuming that's oil pressure sensor or whatever, which looks filthy, but the pressure did seem to go up on it and work. A couple of bungs here, I'm assuming they're probably oil pressure relief or something like that. Whether I need to take them out or not yet, I don't know. I'll probably take the intermediate bit out, or the oil pump pickup intermediate bit out. But I'll take the big ends off and get all the pistons out. I'm going to stamp them and number them up, just so I put them back where they were. Just because if they're worn a bit into the bore, it just makes it a bit more even. Engine mountings, I think these are later engine mountings, or after, because I've heard people, I don't know if it's just early ones, I've heard people talk about solid mounts, and then they have like a shock absorber brace on, and mine has got a bit missing. You can see where something's been bolted on, so I'm assuming possibly these are like upgraded mounts that don't need those shock absorbers, and that's why they're not on. I put all the pulleys back on the water pump, like the tensioner for the cam bolt tensioner, etc., just so I know where everything goes, because it may be weeks before I get around to putting it back on. The oil pump, I'm just going to clean and put back on. Put like a washer on the back of it with a bolt to stop it coming off. I can't see that that's gonna, like I say, when it was running, the oil pressure went straight up to 5, as it should do when it was cold. Did come down a bit after it'd been running a bit, but the oil was so thin, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it went up to 5 when it started, to be fair. So yeah, next video should be taking the crank out. I've not got my heads back yet, but once the crank's out, that intermediate bit's off, then I'm going to give the block a right good cleaning and check over, make sure there is nothing wrong with the block. Like at the bottom of the line, there's any crack like that. Then I'm going to just have a look at what size the main bearings are. I'm assuming they'd just be standard, but it may have been rebuilt before, because like I say, the case is not an original, it's not got a stamp on, so you would assume it's standard. But I don't know when that was done. It's 40 odd years old, so could have been done at any point. You know, have a look at my big end bearings, get some of those the same size, and same with the main bearings. I think it's Giottos, or I can't remember to pronounce it now, but there's a make beginning with G, which apparently is better. So I'm going to Google which is the best one and try and get better quality bearings. I'm not buying genuine Porsche ones, obviously. I'm not made of money, but I want to get decent stuff. And it looks like that sump gasket is, I think I get that with the gasket set I've bought, the head set, well, the full gasket set I've bought. Hopefully I do. If I don't, I'm going to have to buy that separate. But yeah, I mean, the strainer on the pickup isn't very tight. It's not very small holes, but then you have got a filter, so it's neither in or there now really, because it's going to be stripped anyway. But obviously all these mating surfaces are going to have to be cleaned up dead well. But that's not a problem. Things like that bracket, I can't remember what that's for now. Self-explanatory when the pictures are, but I'm not taking it off. I'll leave it. No need for it to come off. It ain't going to come off because I'll forget where it goes, or I might put it on the wrong way. Same with the connections for the oil pipes. I'm not really going to disturb them. I'm going to make sure they're tight and that's it, because if I wind them out and it knackers the thread up or something, if I stuff the block, they don't, I mean, there's oil everywhere on it, but then again it was chucking oil out from the top. At the end of the day, if there's a leak from one of them at some point, when it's back in, you can get to them fairly easy with the alternator off. So yeah, so progress so far. We're not doing too bad. Obviously I will take the dipstick off. I hope it doesn't fall over. It is sitting there quite happily, standing up like that. I was going to use my engine stand, but I think I may well do it like this. Once the piston's right, I may well turn it upside down once it's all cleaned up, put the crank in that way, then put the sump on, then flip it back over and build it upwards that way, leave it on this trolley, because it's a bit heavy to lift up on my own, even with a block as it is. It's quite surprising how heavy the car was with the engine in. I've got a little step, sort of 1.5 inches high, where you drive it over my lift, and I couldn't push it over there on my own with the engine in. With the engine out, I could. So clearly there's a fair bit of weight in there. So yeah, I'll post another video once the crank is out and I've got the intermediate sort of part out of the way. I think with that as well, I'm going to screw a lot of the bolts back in, lay them out and put them back in, because I'm assuming most of them are the same length, but I don't want to mix anything up. That's the way I normally do it, screw everything back in and leave the bolts where they are. I've had occasion before where I've done stuff and there's one bolt that's slightly longer than the other, and you put it in and it does, you know, it can cause you grief. So plus you can't lose anything. Okay, I'll see you next time.